We're live. What is the crack, YouTubers? Welcome to another hobby hangout. It's myself, Scarnier, and none other than
IDICBEER40k. Evening all.
what is the crack, bud? So we're gonna be painting tonight. I've got myself some orcs. I've got 10 orc boys. I need to be throwing some paint on. That's what I'm gonna be mucking around with today. And what are you gonna be cracking away with, Idic?
So surprisingly, I'm still painting my noise marines. So
Still
yeah,
chipping
I'm
away.
still painting my noise marines, but I'm getting there. So yeah, it's gonna be good to get a couple of hours in painting these bad boys up.
How many hours in are you on them so far? How many have you got altogether?
There's 36. There's 6 units of 6, hence Slanesh's number. So yeah, I'll probably play them in 3 units of 12. But I'm painting them in 6 units of 6 sort of war bands.
But you're not doing them in batches of 6. You're painting them all
I'm painting all
together.
36 in one go.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
um,
madman.
yeah. It's been hard work, but at least all 36 are going to look the same. You know, the same level. That's why I like batch painting if I can really.
Yeah, at least you're getting them all done at the same time to the same standard.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can get
So
that.
for example, say um, when I paint my Eldar, I always paint the aspect warriors. Like if I've got fire dragons to paint, I'd rather paint all 3 squads of 10 fire dragons rather than paint say 10 and then like 2 years later think right, I'll paint another squad of them. And then you paint them and they look totally different, either because of the colours or because you've improved your painting as well. So I like
Oh,
to have everything the same if I can.
I never thought of that. I suppose if you're painting them all at the same time, you're gonna roughly have the same standard.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Yeah.
have you ever had problems with it though, where it's like your standard has improved drastically from the first 36th one to the last one? Maybe early days, maybe.
Not really, because I've got my armies are painted at different standards. So, for example, my Tyranids are really basic, easy to paint scheme. So it doesn't matter how much I improve my painting, I'll still paint them to that standard. So each of my armies.
We'll have a look and see who. Tinheads. Sticks is here. That's the crack Sticks. We got Squid Boss, Mad Knobs. Jamjar34 is here, saying
Hey,
hello, and a few dinosaurs. Uh, Hans Gruber is here as well. He's popped in. So we have a few heads showing up. I'm surprised there's no Necrons in Necron comments in the
oh, there
comments
will
section.
be.
Yeah, give it
There
time.
will.
Is it waiting for the reanimation protocols to kick in? Is that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's potentially what it is.
Now, I nearly wasn't actually going to paint tonight because, well, painting and talking could be quite difficult.
It can be, yeah. I find with myself, it's like um, chatting and doing streaming. It's like chatting with your buddies. I find if you're doing base coats or something that isn't too intricate, I think you're sort of on the borderline because you're doing edge highlights tonight. You're sort of on the borderline of where my brain will start to shut down in conversation. It's like it's not that you're not listening. You just
Yeah.
you're focused on trying to make
What
sure.
did you say? Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, you're focused on trying not to make a mess of things. Um,
Yeah, no, exactly.
so I find that myself personally, but as long as you have someone chatting along with you or something to listen to, I find it's grand. The conversation tends to flow itself and doesn't be too much of a problem. So many hours altogether are you in on your Slanesh noise marines? Noise
Uh,
marines?
well, in terms of the second edge highlight, which I'm doing, I'm on 63 hours at the moment for that. But these things have taken me, well, by the time I finish, I think it's going to be a year and a half painting these 36 guys.
You've been chipping away at the 36 for a year and a half.
Yeah, painting roughly an hour a day.
An hour a day. My God. How do you stay motivated, man? Noise marines.
Um, how do I stay motivated?
Or what tips or tricks do you have? Like what? Like, cause when I see like you painting away, you're like a workhorse to me for painting. Like you're like a machine. I don't know how you keep yourself going because I've tried before myself personally. I've tried to do like a mob of 30 orc boys before to a very
Yeah,
high standard or to like some of the best of my painting ability, and it
yeah,
just killed my enthusiasm for it. You know what I mean? I just didn't want to paint for a few months after that. So myself personally, I find if I break the units down into groups of 10 and I can manage it better. Um,
yeah. I think it also depends on your expectations of how long you want something to take you, doesn't it?
yeah.
So these guys, I really don't care how long it takes me because I'm not doing these to play games or for a particular event or anything. I'm just doing these for the love of it as such.
So you haven't tied yourself into a deadline with them. You're just sort of
No,
savoring
no,
the.
that's right. I started them a year and a half ago, and I was painting them sort of on and off for a bit. And then the beginning of last year, I did say to myself, I want to get them done by the end of the year. It didn't happen.
Hmm.
Um, but I did put a lot of hours into them, so I can't really moan. This is quite handy. This guy hasn't got. I'm painting arms at the moment, and he doesn't have an arm. So I can skip him. There's only 35 to paint.
Speeds up the process. I get you. Who's popped into the comment section? We'll see. Coil's here. We've got Nick Tomlin. Uh, this Donks 333. There we go. Our forced go Necrons comment. Dim Reapers here. 33 Claydog has popped in to
Ew.
say hello. Nim is saying, let's not roast the Necrons too much, folks. I hear they're a bit thin skinned. Oh, my God. Oh. Oh, the dad jokes are out. Navani's giving out his YouTube reminder didn't kick in. Yeah, YouTube's like that, dude. I don't know. It's magic to me at this stage. I think Nick's more versed in how the Borky gubbins work for YouTube than me, but yeah, notifications aren't the best. Do you find you have issues with notifications and videos and live streams for YouTube, Nick?
Yeah, definitely. Some people just don't get notifications regardless of what settings they have. However, there are new sort of settings for notifications. Um, Actually, if you have a look at your YouTube Studio, it does tell you about it because you can have a look on there. It tells you how many returning subscribers that you get, how many people have got the bell icon set, and there's different levels. So you can have the bell icon set so you get notified sometimes, and you can have it set if you get notified all the time. But there's a different setting in the studio app. So if you're watching on a mobile phone, it's actually a different setting to when you're watching on a computer.
Hmm.
So it just seems a bit complicated, really.
Bit
But
over convoluted,
yeah,
yeah.
you need to go in and actually sort of tick that all notifications button. Otherwise, you may only get notified sometimes. Because basically, YouTube just don't want to spam you all the time unless you say yes. I do want to be, notified from it.
All the spams. Gone are the days of just subscribing and that was all you needed to do, huh?
Yeah,
Oh.
it's good though. I mean, it does make as a what YouTube watcher. I mean, I watch YouTube most of the time rather than telly. Um, you want to be served the right videos for you, don't you? So
I suppose, yeah, it is. It's a knife edge as to what you want. Claydog, subscribe. Thanks for the subscription, 33 Claydog. Who is painting up what? What are you guys painting up? Don't forget also for the Discord, if you want to post up your work in progress, we shall leave the link, if that's the correct one. Yeah, we've got a Discord link, guys, so near the end, myself and Nick will be looking at what you guys have been working on, so don't forget to post your work in progress as well.
lots of Necron pictures, please.
Yeah, Necrons are welcome. Everything doesn't matter what you're working on. If it's 40k, if it's not 40k, As long as you're getting some painting done, or building, or hobby, it's the whole point of the hobby hangouts is to get some hobby done. I find it's helped myself paint quite a lot. Because normally my painting discipline is terrible, absolutely terrible. Which would
Right.
lead me on to another question: is do you ever paint with unpainted miniatures?
Do you ever play with unpainted miniatures?
Yeah,
I used to. I had when I first started. I think like everyone probably, when you first start, especially when you're just playing with your buddies, you just want to play games.
yeah,
Uh, so I mean, the person that got me into the hobby, he was a converter. Funny enough, he was playing Noise Emperor's Children when I first got into the hobby. He was an awesome converter, but he hated painting. So he never painted a model in his life. So you could say I grew up playing unpainted armies. I did paint mine, of course, but I had no qualms playing unpainted.
yeah.
It's only really since I got the YouTube channel, because obviously you want, if you're making battle reports and stuff, you want to have painted models if you can. But also because, well, I've been painting for so long, a lot of my armies now are gradually getting to a fully painted, position.
You've been chipping away at that iceberg for a good few years. Fair play to you, man. You know what I mean? I always find it interesting because myself personally, I've always been sort of the gamer first, and then I suppose I'd share the same opinion as your friend, where I've never really seen myself as a great painter. And I think I sort of put myself into the mindset that I convinced myself I didn't like painting,
Right.
but which was weird. I don't know. I think it's like it ties into being your own worst critic, where you'd paint something, put a lot of effort into it, and you'd be like, "Oh, it didn't work out the way I wanted it to." But sort
Yeah.
of not taking into account the journey and the having to chip away at something as a skill and the improvement over time.
I think you do forget when you forget after a while how hard it is when you first start. I mean, my first units that I painted 20 warriors, and I know they're only dry brushing, but I always remember this. Fully painted this unit of warriors. Thought, oh, this looks really good. Went to my buddy to just let him, say, what do you think of them? The one that doesn't paint. He looked at me and he goes, yeah, it looks really good. I said, but what about the mould lines? I said, what do you mean mould lines? He goes, all these little lines. It's like all my Necron warriors had these mould lines on. So I scraped all the mould lines up and
Oh,
repainted them.
yeah.
That was my first experience. But until you don't know, do you? Sort of, it takes a lot to like get used to everything that you have to do in the hobby.
But it is a bit of a steep learning curve, and it can seem daunting, all right, especially
Yeah,
for people who haven't been in the hobby at all. Um, but I find like introducing people to painting, like I got my brother to do a little bit of painting, and he was a bit apprehensive, but I find even if you're not into the hobby, quite a lot of people find it very sort of therapeutic just to paint. You know what I mean? They get sort of engrossed in the task at hand, and all your sort of worries of life, and all that type of stuff. You go into sort of a weird sort of zen area, I think. So I find that aspect very interesting. Some people find that very helpful.
yeah, absolutely. It's a chance just to zone out, isn't it?
It is indeed. We have who else has rocked into the place? We have Capitan Morgan's here.
Hello,
Have to get
Richard.
another game in soon. Nicky saying, I enjoy your bat reps with Captain Morgan. The two of you do have some great banter. I do enjoy watching them.
Yeah, it's good fun.
What's the latest one? What was it? Thousand Suns against
Yeah.
your Necrons, and you tore lumps out of each other. I was
Well, well, one army had a lump torn out of it.
well, you know what I mean. If he had gone first, I think it would have been the other way around as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's very interesting. Pocactus saying, I miss the old days when you could just hit the sub button and it would work. I know, mate. I know. Daka Flack of Flames here saying hello. What's the crack? What are people painting? Nick Tomlin's painting squigs. What else is there? Hans Gruber is still painting some bikes. Claydog is repainting some Eldar tanks.
Repainting them, eh?
Oh, yeah, that's another interesting thing. I've come across... Do you ever strip your miniatures after you've painted them and go back and redo them?
No, never.
Because I have a friend locally who... He painted a massive Dark Angels army, and he found that his painting had improved from the start of the project to the end of it. And then he wasn't happy with it, so he stripped the whole army and painted the whole army. I was like, you're a madman. He painted the whole army again. I can understand people wanting to strip miniatures they bought maybe off of eBay, or maybe they got in a trade or something like that. I can get that, because I don't particularly like using miniatures that other people have painted. It's a weird sort of thing I have.
Yeah, no, I'm a bit like that. I prefer to have stuff that I've painted.
I think part of it for me is I'd feel weird if someone came over and said, oh, that's a nicely painted army, and then every time I'd have to turn around and go, well, actually, mate, I didn't paint these. You know, it's sort of like getting credit for something you didn't do. I don't know. Maybe that's just... I don't know. Maybe that's just a weird psychological thing I have going on. Getting praise, somebody else's praise.
Yeah. It's not that. It's that I like to have I like to have the army how I like it.
Yeah. Well, there is that as well. If it your color scheme.
Someone else to try to match it in, can be quite hard.
I suppose it depends on the army. With orcs, I think you could probably get away with it a bit more than with other armies. But with Necrons, I suppose you're more... Well, like you've painted a Necron army, so, you know, do you think more unified visually is important?
For me, it is, yeah. Yeah, I'm quite fussy.
I suppose, yeah, it depends on each individual player.
Yeah. It's actually difficult to talk and paint.
It can be. It just depends. We'll go to the comment section and see what people are banging on about. Steve-O was saying boo to Moldines. Kyle was saying, posting up my work in progress images. Not the best quality, but it's work in progress. Once it's done, I'll show off better images. Cool. Dim is saying, painting is my weakness. Building, and in brackets, and converting is my hobby, Zen. So yeah, that ties into it. I think it's the same for everyone. I remember reading a White Dwarf like years and years ago that there's like a hobby pie chart that we all have, or a hobby pie, and then everybody has different slices of the pie. So like some people may have like 50% of their pie they really like painting, they don't really like building or converting, that type of thing. You know what I mean? We all have different proportions of the hobby that we're really interested in, which I find interesting depending on who you are and what aspects of the hobby you really like. But we're all into the same hobby. I find that type of thing very interesting as well.
Well, that's what makes this hobby so great, is there's just so much to it, isn't there?
Oh yeah, multifaceted, definitely.
And I always say to myself, I suppose it comes from going back to hobby motivation, but as long as I'm doing something towards the hobby, then I'm happy. You know, so that could be, as you say, actually doing modelling, like building, converting, painting, but also like making an army list. You know, so if I sit down for 2 hours and make an army list, I may not have achieved any painting of my models, but at least I've done something.
But yeah, there is that aspect as well that some people do forget, that the game is very encompassing. Like there's a lot to it, but I don't know. I think I'm trying to word it without sounding discouraging to someone who's like brand new. There's a lot to the game, but there's as much to it as you want it to be. So you don't have to play the game to enjoy painting the miniatures.
No.
You don't have to paint your miniatures if you don't want to, and you just enjoy playing the game and making army lists. I think really the hobby is what you want it to be, depending on what you want to get out of it. Uh, Definitely, because I know there's some people who only paint and don't play the game. And there's some people who play the game and absolutely despise painting. You know.
Yeah, I think this is where Games Workshop have gone in quite a nice direction of like battle ready miniatures. You know, there's no high expectations. When I first started, all I had was pictures in White Dwarf. You know, and in the codex, I always remember looking at those, thinking, how the did they paint that? You
Yeah.
know, it's like I want to paint like that, and you try to paint like that, and it never works out. You get frustrated. Now you go to the GW painting page they've got, or the YouTube page. There's a 3-minute video on how to paint something battle ready, and it's like 3 easy steps. And I think that's good for helping people get motivated to paint.
Yeah, I think you're right there. It helps in that regard, but that probably ties into another thing though. That's mainly a problem, is that we can't help it because it's all part of being a human. But we tend to compare ourselves to others and their skill level and standard, as
Yeah,
opposed to comparing ourselves to our own progress and our own abilities, where we look, I've done it myself, where you look at a heavy metal painted miniature and you go, oh god, how will I ever get to that standard? Not taking into account, what you should be looking at is, well, I started painting this army and I'm 60 boys in, and it's like, well, look at your first painted orc boy, and then look at the last one you did, and, look at the progression. Maybe, it's just you've speeded up. You're able to paint the orcs quicker, or necrons, or insert army, needs, or whichever. Maybe you're able to paint them quicker, to the same standard, or maybe your standard has improved in the same time frame, or there's a lot of ways you can look at it. Like we
yeah,
were saying before the stream began, I found it very interesting to actually record for the first time how long it takes me to paint something, and quantifying my painting, because it helps put things into perspective, I think, and your expectations then.
yeah, totally. I learnt a long time ago. I was at school actually. I always remember this, like to this day. It's something that I've taken with me. It was in woodwork. We were making like tables,
Hmm.
little coffee tables, and I made this coffee table. My mum's still got it to this day in her front room, and I was really pleased with it. Like, I thought I'd done a fantastic job. I took these 2 pieces of wood, put them together, and made this big table and the stuff. And then there was one guy in our class, and he made this like foldable chess table, and it was like absolutely amazing. And it's like I always said to myself, it doesn't matter how good whatever I do, there's always someone better than you. You can never be. It's very hard to be that person that's absolutely like the
The
best.
best,
Like at
yeah.
say sports, like snooker, for example. How many Ronnie O'Sullivans can there be? There's always someone better than you. But the thing is, as long as what I've taken away from it is as long as I try my best, and my end result is the absolute best that I can do, then I'm happy. Regardless of whether there's someone else that can do it much better than you.
Yeah, that's definitely an important lesson to learn in the long term. And it's when you sit down and think about it, you have to also, when you break it down as to why you're better off thinking that way. When you're comparing yourself to someone else, you're not taking into account when they started it, their current skill level, how much time they've sunk into it. You're only looking at, you're comparing at that specific moment, whether it be present or or past tense, and we're all on different levels in life, at different stages in life itself and in the hobby. You know, I think it's a very weird thing. It's a very natural thing I think we do as people. Um,
Yeah, no,
but
absolutely.
it's a bit of a trap we lay down for ourselves. I think
It
definitely a bit
took
of a
me a
trap.
while to even like learn to paint as such, which I think was one disadvantage of having Netcons as my first army, because they were pretty easy to paint. Like I said, it's basically just dry brushing and stuff. And it wasn't until I got my Eldar army that I actually learned to paint. But that was like 7 years later.
Wait, did you found that it pushed your skills
Yeah,
sort
because
of?
yeah, I mean, I'd never done edge highlighting before. I'd never done sort of like uh, power weapon effects and all those things that you normally would do if you started with Space Marines. You'd do a sergeant with a power sword glowing blue and stuff. With your Netcons, you don't really do that. You just dry brush everything silver and just do like a few green spots on them, and that's it, job done. But
Eh,
when I got to the Eldar,
hmm,
they had all edge highlighting, and I chose quite a difficult paint scheme, which is white and purple for my
oof.
Eldar,
Hmm.
and it really did push me. Then I had all the different aspect warriors. So I had fire dragons. I was painting orange, and I was painting dire avengers. They were blue. So it gave me a great opportunity to learn lots of different techniques. I think that's the for me the best army to paint, to actually become a good painter, is probably Eldar, because there's just so much to them.
There's so much diversity within their miniature range,
Yeah,
even in a standard army. Yeah, I never
yeah,
actually thought of that before. Even that the aspect warriors, like the fire dragons and your warp spiders, they have specific sort of color schemes that
yeah.
are different. That's yeah, that's actually very interesting. Who has dropped into the comment section? They are nattering away. Voldemort's dropped in. What's the crack, Voldemort? It's Guide to Warhammer. He's saying that it's a very broad church, this hobby. Pocactus is saying Scarner's Pie is 20%. Oh, look at this, an 80% unfinished growth tank. I am a bit of a hobby butterfly. I do get distracted by the shinies quite a lot. Alexander Warren popped in. What's the story? Orc stuff is here. Howdy chaps. Scar coming up with excuses for his grey tide again. They're getting green. They are getting green. See, look, slowly getting green. It's only we were only saying before the stream started that it's like what I've been on YouTube probably nearly as long as you, about 10 years, but I still don't have a fully painted orc army. Different priorities. It's like I like playing the game. But that sort of ties into the hobby being a broad church as well, you know? Just because you don't like painting stuff. Um,
You literally just have orcs, or do you have any other armies?
um, I've bits and pieces of stuff, but I don't have any other dedicated armies. So, like, I have Kill Team. I don't even know if I have any of them to hand. Like, Orcs went my first army. I started in the hobby back in, I think it was like 1997. I was tormenting my mother or tormenting my parents for about 2 years, before they'd let me buy any Warhammer. My mother was like, "No, no, it's too expensive. You can't. It costs too much." So, like from the age of about 7, I think I was tormenting them to get some 40k because one of the guys who I went to school with, he had Warhammer and he was always bringing in the books and you know
Right, yeah.
showing the stuff. You know yourself, it's like the first time you'll see something. I remember there being like the little pamphlets they used to give out free where they'd show the miniatures, and I remember looking at them. You'd be uh, thumbing over them. You get like the free pamphlet, and the thing would be dog-eared and worn out from you going over the 8 pages in it or whatever again and again and again. But eventually, yeah, I managed to get into the hobby. But originally, I started off with Space Wolves. and Bretonnians. I used to be big in Warhammer Fantasy. I think I started Orcs would have been about 2008, 2007. I had a really enjoyable game playing against Orcs, and I really liked the guy's army, that it was converted up and very unique and cool. And I was like, that was it.
Would you be surprised if I said my very first game of 40k, the army that I played was Orcs?
Really?
Yeah.
Back in the day.
So my buddy, I didn't get into the hobby when I was really young. I was 30 when I got into the hobby.
Well, better late than never.
Yeah, my buddy that I worked with, he was like 18 or something, and he was telling me about this game, and he said, "Oh, do you want to have a go?" "Oh, no, I'm far too old for that. Too old for that." No, you're never too old. Okay, man. So he came round. He had just started a Tyranid army, and he brought his brother's army round for me to play, and it was Orcs.
Oh, you used Orcs?
Yeah, he played his brother's army, so I played Orcs. He played Tyranids. We played on my round dining room table with a few pots and jars.
As you do, man. Good stuff.
And I really enjoyed it. And the moment I thought this hobby is for me, this game is for me, was when his Tyranid, he had a, what's it called? Zone Throat. Right?
Zone
He had a
Throat,
and he did this psychic power. I think obviously Warp Blast. I think it's now called. I don't know if it was called that at the time. And he blasted my Orc buggy, one of those really small old ones.
Yeah.
Exploded it with one dice. And when I saw that, I thought, that is cool.
You were sold then, right?
The next day I went down to the shops and started having a look at all the armies. Saw the Necron Codex, the picture on the front, and that was it. I was hooked on Necrons.
So we could have potentially had an Orc player out of you, is what you're telling us.
Yeah, well, his brother had Orcs, so that's one reason why I didn't do it. So I think when you're in a little gaming group, you don't tend to pick armies that your buddies
somebody else has. Yeah, I know. I get that. Yeah, definitely. There is a bit of that. It's like, your mate collects Imperial Guard, and then the other one might have an army that you want, but you're like, we'll collect something different for a bit of diversity. I can get that, exactly. Especially in small groups.
Yeah, so when I first started, we had a Orc player, a Tyranid player. He's the guy who had the Emperor's Children army as well. And then we had an Imperial Guard player, and I was playing Necrons.
So you had a nice mix there, actually.
Yeah.
For playing in, which is great for campaigns and such as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And of course, 40k was all about close combat back then. Close combat was king.
Was this back in 5th edition days, probably, was it?
3rd edition.
Oh yeah, my god. I played a little bit of 3rd ed, but not a lot.
Well, yeah, so my buddy's Emperor's Children army, that was like beast in close combat at that, so I remember that. My Necrons were like rubbish. Initiative 2.
Yeah.
One attack. So if I didn't shoot him down before he got there, then that was it.
And then I'm not up to date with Necrons. I know they used to phase out. I think when you got down to, what was it, like 10% of your army, or
no, if you lost 75%, you used to phase off the board. Yeah. That's gone now, though.
I remember those days, all right.
But
I don't think I've ever played against Necrons, Nick.
You're joking?
Never. I've never had a game. I've never known someone who's collected Necrons. I've never played against Necrons. I'm trying to think if there's any other armies I haven't played. I've definitely played Tyranids. I've played against Chaos. I've even fought Sisters of Battle, Imperial Guard, all various different Space Marines. I think I've never played Necrons. Yeah. Never fought them. which is weird. We'll have to one of these days we'll have to sort that out.
Yeah.
Get a battle out of you. Who else is cracking on in the comment section? Navani saying really young at 30. Well, glad to hear that I'm very young. Have we any questions for the guys in the comment section? We've quite a few people watching away. Is there anything we'd like to ask them in particular?
If Clayton's still there, I'd like to know if he's going to start making videos again, because I miss his videos.
You want to know if Clayton's going to make videos again?
Yeah.
So Clayton, if you get the finger out there. Clay Dog, is it? 3-3
Yeah.
Clay Dog.
Yeah.
He was saying he's more of a painter than a gamer, but I'd like all parts of the hobby. So if Clayton's still watching, Nick wants to know, are you going to start making videos again? Is there anyone who used to make videos that no longer does? Like even an old channel, Nick, like going back years, that you really miss? Like if you could get one person to start making videos again.
Oh, it's hard when I've seen so many people come and go. Yes. No, what's his name? He used to play Eldar. Is it Eldar Corsos, or can't remember his name now.
Eldar Corsair or something, is it?
Yeah. It's a very long time ago. I think that's the thing, I can't even remember.
It was that long ago.
Yeah.
I think for me, there's one orc player that I really miss. He's still around, he still watches and comments, but he doesn't make videos the way he used to. And it's Canvas1. He's a guy in Australia.
Yeah, I know him, yeah. He did make a bit of a comeback, didn't he?
He did for a little bit.
A couple of videos, and then he went away again.
He went back into the warp, but I do miss Canvas's scratch builds. His plastic card work. I used to enjoy watching his videos back in the day.
This is much slower than it should be by talking. I've done 4.
Ah, your pace is slowed down. We're distracting you. Well, yeah, the hobby hangouts are handy for getting stuff done, but yeah, it does sort of slow you down.
Yeah, the weird thing is I can't actually remember painting any of them.
Wonder how to keep track. Well, yeah, it'll be like a time warp. It's like, how many have I painted? I don't know.
Yeah.
Clay Dog did reply. He said he will be making videos.
Oh, excellent.
Kyle was asking, what would it take for you to go orcs, Nick?
What would it take? Ooh. Well, my buddy has an orc army already, which was one reason I'd never really got into it. I've always liked orcs. I nearly did an allied detachment for my Necrons when allies first came out.
Or was that 6th?
Yeah, because I thought that orcs and Necrons would be quite good together. And the Necrons shooty, and then the orcs just charging forward. But it never happened.
It never materialized.
No.
Probably for the best for the Necrons, though. I reckon there would have been a lot of looting going on in the background, you know?
Yeah.
So what happened to our destroyers? What destroyers? I don't know what you're talking about.
Obviously, in 8th edition, I've only really played Necrons. It's just so hard to keep up that I haven't got my other armies out too much.
There is a lot to keep up. I do often wonder people who have 3 and 4 armies. There's so much changing so quickly. I do wonder how they keep up to date with all of the rules changes and stratagems and all the FAQs and stuff. I can understand you're wanting to just stick to one army at a time. I really don't know how people keep track of several armies.
I have got to the stage where I'm thinking, is it really worth keeping my other armies at the moment? I know I've always said, like, you should never sell your army, but I don't know.
I think when it comes to selling armies, you need to be sure. I think you'd want to sit on it for myself personally. You'd want to sit on it for a year or two. You know, don't
Yeah.
just sort of do it off the cusp because there's so many people who are like, oh, I had enough of the hobby. I got annoyed. I quit and I sold everything. And then they come back a few years later and a lot of regret for their old armies. Now, I've sold off armies myself, but what I have found is very helpful is if you hold on to one miniature. So I have, now I need to do a bit of repair work and a bit of fixing, but I have from my old Space Wolf army, I have my old Logan Grimnar.
Right.
So I find even if you just hold on to one miniature, just as sort of like a memento, I find that
Yeah.
kind of helps. You know what I mean? So this guy needs a bit of repair work, the old metal one. But I've at least one miniature for every army I've had so far.
I think this is it. I don't regret my armies because I've had lots of fun painting them, and when I used to playing them, um, it's just that the only regret I have is that all of the time and money that I've spent on those other armies, if I hadn't had those armies, just imagine how big my Necron force would be right now. You know, I'm still lacking in quite a number of areas in my Necron army. Because if I didn't have all those other armies, I would have all those units.
Yeah, sort of like I can get you, but well, yeah, we're on opposite sides of the fence in that regard because I focused solely on orcs, and the only time I have stuff that isn't orcs is if I buy like a kill team box set or something like that. So I've little drips and drabs of units here and there,
Yeah,
but I've focused solely on orcs for the better part of 10 and 12 years or whatever. So I find being on this side of the fence that it's sort of a blessing and a burden at the same time because if you get a bad codex, if you have 4 armies, it's not too much of a burden, because you can switch to your other 3 armies that you play. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Whereas if you're just focused down on the one faction, like say if they redid the Necron Codex and it was absolutely dire, like it was terrible compared to what you've played before, you're sort of hamstrung a bit. You know what I mean?
yeah. I suppose I mean, ultimately, I suppose the real reason why I'm more focused in on Necrons now is obviously because of the YouTube channel. So even if that was going to happen, even if that did happen with the Codex, I'd still be playing Necrons.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have the YouTube channel based on it, then absolutely.
I suppose, yeah, running a YouTube channel helps sort of helps focus you down, I think, a bit
Mm.
into what you're in. Says the man who's rebranded and diversified his channel. um, but yeah, I suppose you'd have a different approach if you're doing YouTube content because you want to. Like, I don't do battle reports because, as we were talking about before, not having. I don't have a painted army, so I don't do battle reports. It's not that I don't want to do battle reports. I'd love to. I don't think it'd be justified. I used to do them back in the day, back in tournaments for 5th edition. What few I have, but I think it was back like when we could only do. I think we could only do like 10-minute videos or something like that. They're really like super
Yeah,
short and quick. See,
that's
even
right.
the
Isn't it?
format is totally changed like to back then, because that was what 2010, 2011 that I
Yeah,
did those.
and I don't know how I did it in the past. I used to play a different army every week. I used to play. Sometimes I used to play twice a week. Definitely once, sometimes twice. And part of the fun for me was one week I'd turn up with Tyranids, the next week I'd have Necrons, the next week I'd have Eldar. I had no trouble keeping up with them. But now I can't seem to do it. I don't know, is it 8th edition? Is it the rules? Or is it me changing or my lifestyle changing? Or maybe it's just because of the YouTube channel. But
Might
I
be might be a bit of both.
enthusiasm to play all the other armies.
Hmm. It might be both then.
I think it is 8th edition, though, to be fair. Just keeping up with the rules and, like you say, with the stratagems and everything else. I mean, I still feel like I'm learning the Necrons, to in some respects.
Yeah, like I find, and we'll probably ask people in the comments section, how do you find 8th edition? I think it's very different compared to previous editions where you've had like a few years and the rule set has mostly stayed the same. Whereas I find with 8th edition, it's like there's a new, it's like the game changes enough that it's like starting over. Do you know what I mean? Constantly.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. The reason why I can't get on with my Tyranids or my Eldar is because I haven't got the right unit to play the army the way it needs to be played now. So when I got my Eldar out, I've only got 2 fire prisons. Really, you need 3 fire prisons.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then my Tyranids, there's certain Tyranid units that I don't have, which in 8th edition are the ones to play. Okay, you can still play, play anything, can't you, that you want. But if you want to play to a decent level, do you know what I mean? The army compositions have changed so much now. So it's not just an investment in the rules; it's an investment in, well, now I need to buy this model, and then I've got to get it painted.
Yeah, you're sort of like chasing the meta. I think
Yeah,
this edition that's accelerated quite a lot. Like you've had
yeah,
a
that's put me off, and I think that's why at the moment I'm really enjoying these like noise marines, is because I'm not painting these for the meta. I've gone more for like a fluff army. When I finish this army, I'm going to put it down on the table. I'm probably going to get slaughtered with it, but I don't really care because it's. Do you know what I mean? It means more to me, this army, than just playing to win.
yeah. No, I can get you. I get where you're coming from. I do understand that. And I suppose that probably ties into what you were talking about, wishing that you'd sort of stuck with the one army, because you'd have options then, and if the meta changes, you can just chop and change.
Yeah,
Whereas if you're stuck in a situation that you're in where you're looking going, oh well, realistically, I'd need this many of that unit, and I don't because you didn't, you haven't got the whole collection or multiples of it.
yeah. And when you go on eBay, and maybe not so now, but say a couple of years ago, go on eBay looking at, say, buying a Tau army. Because Tau are probably one of the armies which have really changed over the years. On the units that they take. You see those old school Tau armies on eBay that nobody buys now because they're not the right units to play.
I suppose if you and your friends aren't really interested in the meta, you could get a bargain out of it then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you're playing a very fluffy sort of lore driven type of campaign or something like that.
I'm constantly looking on eBay for monoliths.
Do you find them like, are they out of vogue at the moment type of thing?
Yeah. I mean, they're terrible at the moment. No one's playing them. So I'm trying to get as many as I can because I know one day they will be really good again. Then I can bring out like 9 monoliths.
All shall tremble before me. Yeah, there's I think that happens as well. There's like swings and roundabouts. Some units are very popular and then they go out of favor, and
Mm,
then I suppose that's the risk you run with them. Those they can drop off the radar altogether, where they're like, oh, we're not making this miniature anymore,
yeah.
or I suppose that's the gamble you have. Or they could come back and you're like, oh well, I'm ahead of the curve type of thing. Let's have a look at the comment section that we've been neglecting. I do apologise, folks. Claydog is saying, I have quite a few armies I play in 8 in a Pale Orca sale. I sold out of Fantasy when it changed. The Pale Orca, I did the same myself. I used to be a big Fantasy player. The last edition of Fantasy that I played was 7th edition, and when the 8th edition codex or rulebook came out, I didn't like the direction of the game and I just bailed. And I'd found 40k orcs then. I'd found my salvation at that point, so I was happy enough. Did you used to play fantasy much, Nick?
No, never played it.
Never got into it.
No. Um, we were going to my original gaming buddies, which I don't game with anymore. They're not even into the hobby. But at one point, we all decided we were going to get into fantasy. We chose our armies. I was going to do dwarfs,
Ah, dwarves, man. Yeah.
but it never happened. We just never got around to it. Then they were going to do War Machine, and that never happened. I'm pleased though that it didn't, because 40k is enough for me.
Yeah, I think you really need to sort of. I suppose it ties into with like the armies and such. You have to sort of pick your battles and stick with them. You don't want to spread yourself too thin.
Yeah.
Like myself, I've started to get into BattleTech because I really like the gaming system. But it's handy in that it's like, well, you know, if we're playing a game of 40k and we're playing a 2,000 point battle, well, what's the average time we're expecting? What, at least 3 hours? In and around something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, about that, isn't it? Depending on if you get slaughtered turn one or not. But yeah.
Yeah, it can be. It depends. And it's like I find I get the same sort of playtime. If I'm playing BattleTech, it's like, well, we've 4 miniatures each, and we could be playing for 4 hours. You know, it all depends what you're after, and there's different things out there, but I suppose it just depends. But yeah, you definitely don't want to spread yourself too thin. There is
Um,
only so many hours in the day, and so much spare hobby time you have, and
no, yeah.
if you're painting as well, you know, I've enough unpainted orcs to not be adding to the grey pile. Who was saying what? Kyle was saying 7th and 8th edition introduced the multiple books required and FAQs and everything. I think this is when we were talking about trying to keep up with the various armies. Navani
I'm
was.
not. I'm not ignoring the chat, everyone. I can't see it. So.
Navani is saying, ooh, Scanner versus 6 Plus would be cool. Who's the baldest of the knobs? Eventually. It might happen eventually, but I need a painted army first. So Steve-O's doing the same. Steve-O's getting his army painted, and fair play to him.
So how much do you have painted then in 10 years?
In 10 years? Not much. Really not much. I don't know what I did with the time. I really don't. I've had... what have I had? What have I painted? I'm trying to think. I used to paint me Space
one
Wolves.
unit of grots.
Yeah, I used to paint me Space Wolves, but I sold all of them off. But I think they were very basic colours, just like Space Wolf Grey, that type of thing. With me orcs, I've been looking at what I actually have, and I don't really have much painted at all. I see. My problem is I got myself into a mental block where I was like, I decided I hated painting, therefore I wasn't going to paint.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what my problem was. When in the reality of it, it was, you know, I don't hate painting. I just hate that it takes so long. And
I think I remember when you start, you like G'd yourself up, because that's when you sent me that model to paint, wasn't it? And you said, I'm going to use it for inspiration to try and get my army painted.
yeah, exactly.
I painted Badruck for you, didn't I?
I still have them. Yep, I've yet to use them in a battle report, but I still have that Badrook. But this is what happens to me: is I get myself super motivated, and then that's when I try to paint a 30. I have some of them here. Hold on. That was when I tried to paint a. Well, I did mostly get the unit painted. It's pretty much done. Miniatures. That's when I got these 30 shooter boys mostly painted, and I decided to go to town on them, but I sort of like they're some of the nicest painted orcs I've ever done, where I was like, I'll do camo everywhere, and they look mint, but it absolutely burned any motivation out of me for the best part of 6 to 7 months.
Mm.
So I enjoyed painting them, and like the camo looks sweet and all. But
You haven't got barrels out though.
ah, I need
You
to
haven't
drill. I
drilled
know. Yeah, I'm a lazy git. It's like drill your barrels, mate. Drill your. It's like I know, but I did. I don't know. I was like, I know exactly what I did wrong. For me, I need to break the units down. So I did a few things badly. Um, the first thing I know I did wrong is I didn't have my color scheme set before I started the unit. That's a big mistake. So I'd paint 20 orcs and then actually change my mind. So while I've painted 30 orcs, it's like I've really painted like 50 or something. So
Okay.
that was a big mistake I made. Not having the color scheme hashed out before I started. So that was mistake number one. Mistake number two was having an over complicated painting scheme on a lot of miniatures. Um, Doing camouflage is fine, but doing camouflage, different colors of camouflage on the
Yeah.
same miniatures. So I might have two different colors of camouflage on the same miniature. So like a khaki and a camo, and then doing that across the unit didn't help. And then lastly, the thing that I learned that really killed it for me was trying to paint so many miniatures to a high standard at the same time. It was that triad of mistakes I made that really sort of killed it for me.
Right.
Um, that's where I really went wrong. But I've learned my lessons from it now, and I've I've got myself back into the painting saddle. Like what is it, a year later or something? Um, but yeah, it's interesting. I just find it interesting that you can learn from it, and then if I can learn from my mistakes, I just want to sort of tell people about it. So I'm like, don't do what I did. Trust me, mate. It's like, don't do what I did. Save
Done all
yourself the
sorts
hassle.
of things really. I think that's the key thing to mix it up. You know, I've painted a whole army in a month. I painted 2,000 point Dark Elder army in 30 days. Um, but then I've spent like 2 months painting 6 orc characters. You know, to a different level. I think that is the thing to do different stuff all the time to keep yourself, you know,
Motivate
think,
them back in. That's what sort of got me painting again. Is I started painting something that was totally different. I started painting some BattleTech miniatures, which were totally different to orcs. Um, I begrudgingly started painting those miniatures, and then I started enjoying it. And then I found, oh, actually, I'm enjoying painting miniatures, and so I picked up some orcs, and I was like, oh, I'll get these done. And I think that ties into what you're saying of having something different to paint to
yeah,
to break it
like
up.
either different models or a different type of challenge. Like you say, maybe one time you'll do a unit of 10, but then the next time you might do like a single character, and the next
Yeah,
time it might be a unit of 5 devastators. You know, keeping that difference. You've always got a different challenge. You know, at the moment, I'm looking at these 36 Marines, thinking I've painted one, 35 to go. That's a totally different mindset to having a unit of 5.
I can. Yeah,
And it
definitely it
keeps
is.
fresh though, because it's a different challenge.
It's a different creature, definitely. But like I said, I've learned my habits and how I could sort of trick myself psychologically to stay motivated about it. And I'm sure people will have different tricks that they have themselves to try and stay motivated. Like, what's the thing that you find yourself that keeps you motivated the most? Or, like, say if you find yourself lagging uh, with motivation, like, is there a few tricks that you have
Hmm.
for your painting that you'll find will get it back up and running again?
Yeah, I've never really had hobby burnout as such. So my motivation is always there. It's just about how much time I get for it. Um, and that's varied over the years, really, especially, having children. Um, I've noticed that as the children get older, I've had like less time, which is a bit weird because you would have thought you'd have more time as they get older, but actually
Yeah.
less.
Hmm. It is
But
interesting.
because when they're younger, they go to bed quite early.
Yeah.
You know, go to bed at like 6:30, 7 o'clock, and you got the whole night to yourself. As they get older, that gets later and later. And when they start going to bed at like 9:30, 9 o'clock, you sit down, it's like 9:45. You think, can I be bothered to paint now?
Get an hour in or something, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's how much time you get. But what I have definitely noticed is that the more time that I have, the harder it is to get motivated, which I know sounds really odd.
It
But
sounds like a bit of a crazy catch-22, like.
yeah, so I found when I didn't have much time to hobby, I'd work out during the week like where I do have time to hobby. Like I might have, say, a couple of hours here. On a Sunday morning, I could have an hour before I go to work or, whatever. So when you've only got that restricted amount of time to actually do something, then you're really motivated to do it in that time. It's like, this is my time, I'm going to do it now.
Hmm.
Whereas if you've got more time on your hands, it's easier to get distracted. It's like, okay, well, I should be painting now, but I've got this afternoon to paint. So maybe this morning I might watch a movie. And then you watch a movie, and then the afternoon comes and you think, oh, I don't really feel like it now. I'll do the painting tonight instead. So then you don't paint in the afternoon. And the night comes, so then like your friend might come round unannounced, and then that's your painting session gone.
You've more opportunity to procrastinate, probably.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, I might just do it later. I've got all the time in the world. Then you end up not doing it anyway. At least when you've got limited time, I think you do make the most of it.
It's more precious to you then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Your grim determination. I've only got 2 hours this week. It's happening.
yeah, exactly.
Who was saying what in the comment section? Steve said Nick was giving me a real hard time. I think he was referring to the barrels and the lack of drilling. Navani was saying, did we join Idic Roast Skarner's painting stream? Ah, well, a bit of tough love, helps with the motivation. Us orc players have to be thick-skinned. We're used to taking a beating. Orc stuff is saying, painting entire units of your orcs in exactly the same camo don't tend to look right anyhow. Ah, yeah, but you mix and match it, though, you know what I mean? You'll have two different types of camo and stuff. I think it looks nice on Blood Axes. We'll see when I eventually have some painted units. Well, I do have some, but not a lot. Navani is saying, when I sit here painting boys, I have to keep reminding me that it's only troops. Don't spend too much energy on them. Yeah, I find that was one of the downfalls I had was investing so much into like units that I'm going to be taken off by the handful, and so many of them needing to be painted. Whereas you can sort of paint something to the nines, like when you did Badrook for me. It's like you can see, painting to that standard for a character is all well and good, but you're gonna slow yourself down a lot if you're
Painting
painting.
36 noise marines to that standard.
Well, if you're doing it for the pleasure of painting them, but I think it's different if it's like a passion project, like what you're doing now. I think
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
doing is more of a passion project rather than I need to get these noise marines painted so I can do bat reps on the channel, or I need to get them done for
Yeah.
a tournament. I think it's different when it's a bit of a passion project. You can sort of savor it a bit more.
Well, it's different for everyone. Everyone paints for different reasons, don't they?
Yeah, I'd say people paint for different reasons, but even in and of that itself, people might have different projects that they paint or come at it with a different approach. So you might have bought yourself a Hive Tyrannid or Hive Tyrant, sorry, that you don't collect needs, but you were like, that'd be really cool to paint, and you might chip away at that for months, and then you might be doing a large squad of troops for your Imperial Guard or whatever, but you're sort of, your approach is going to be different, um, even for an individual like painting themselves.
I've only ever really painted to game rather than painting for the sake of. I've never gone into Games Workshop and thought, oh, that model would be really cool to have to paint, and bought it to paint. I always go in thinking, right, I need that for my army, and I buy the model that I need for my army.
Hmm.
I know there are a lot of people out there that just like to paint, you know, it's like, oh, that's a cool model, I want to paint that. I've never really been like that.
Because you've come from the approach of game forced with miniatures.
Yeah, I fell in love with the game at first, you know, that's what drew me into the hobby. But I'm quite lucky in that I'm a fairly artistic person, you know, I'm not particularly academic, you know, but I just feel like I've got a bit of an artistic streak, so that helps me with the hobby as well, you know.
Bit of a creative spark in there.
Yeah.
Let's see who else is chatting away on the comments section. Hans Gruber said, I painted some orcs and then something Skaven and then back to orcs. Helps me not get bored with painting.
Yeah, totally. That is one advantage of having several armies. Well, that's what I do, you know, and also having the armies at different levels of painting is great as well. So if I want a nice, easy, fun thing to paint, I'll paint a Tyrannid because I've got a really basic paint scheme on there. It's nice and quick, I can get a lot done, and it's fun to paint. And then if I want a real challenge, like I'll get an Eldar unit out to paint. So definitely mixing up what you paint is like really useful.
I think, I think having the multi-army hobbying going on does help in that regard.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you said even if you paint them at different levels, if you have different armies at different levels, I suppose that would sort of help with the painting itch of if you're getting bored with just doing rank and file for one army and then you want to do something a bit more intricate, depending on the standard. Or I suppose maybe you'd want to do that with a more of an elite army. So if you did like Grey Knights or something small and you painted that up to the nines, you know, you could go to town on it then. What's Steve-O saying? Steve-O said, my best trick is to just say to myself, pick up the paintbrush, you lazy git. Literally, sometimes you just gotta force yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do be like that myself, Steve-O. I think myself and Steve-O are kindred spirits at this point.
I made an old video a long time ago about how to batch paint. So I was giving my batch painting tips. And one of those tips was, what was it? Oh yeah, put too much paint on your palette.
Oh, you're forced to use it or
Yeah,
waste it.
I don't
Yeah.
want to waste that paint. It doesn't really work now because I'm using a wet palette. But when I have dry palettes, it's like put too much paint on and then you don't want to waste it. So like keep painting.
Try and race the paint before it dries.
Yeah. Actually, you'll be impressed. You'll never guess what I've been painting. Look at this. I'm going to switch the camera over.
Alright, hold on, give me a sec. He says as I'm mixing paint on the palette. Give me a second. We'll do a close-up cam here.
This is what I was painting earlier today.
Go on.
It's an orc.
Hey! Looks like a Warboss arm. Is it the Southern Blackreach Warboss?
This is my test painting arm. I've painted this about 1 billion times.
Ah.
So I've got a white guitar on my Noise Marines to paint. So I've been experimenting with shading white, and I was recommended this by Paul Beckers. I don't know if you know, he's a historical gamer, I think. But yeah, he recommended, where's the camera up there? That. If you can see it or not.
You can see wash.
Yeah, Game Color Wash Lavado, Pale Grey. And he said it's awesome stuff for washing white. So I got it and I tried it. Where's that arm gone? Oh, here we go. It's worked really, really well. It's still quite white, but yeah, all in the grooves and the gaps, it's got this nice grey finish. I wish I'd known about this when I was painting my Eldar white.
Can you not go back and touch up the white that you have in your Elder? Or what, do you think it would skew it too much?
No, it's just the fact that with my Eldar, I got this same effect by manually painting in the grey.
Ooh, yeah.
I went into all of the recesses and painted in grey. Well, this is just a wash. You just wash it over, and it's like pretty much job done. Probably just touch up the whites here and there, and you're there. But, yeah, I was experimenting with that. But I think it's good to, like I said, this is my experimenting arm. I've painted
Mm.
this loads of times. So if I want to try something out, I'll just give this a spray of primer and then just paint, on there if I want to experiment on how to do, maybe I want to do fire or something. Just use this orc arm just to experiment before I actually put it onto the model.
You have so little value for the orcs, you're like, we'll just keep this arm for testing paint schemes. We won't bother with, just one arm will do. You know what I mean? But that's, I think that ties back into when I was talking about what killed me motivation for painting. If I had done something similar, whereas you don't want to be trying out the color scheme on the unit itself you want to paint. I think what your approach there is probably really smart. You have something that could be throw away or something you strip down,
Yeah,
hash it out, get it locked in, and then go to town on the unit. That's a really good tip.
it's how I painted my Dark Eldar, which, like I said, I painted that in 31 days. I just had a test model, and I just painted it exactly how I was going to paint it to see how it looked, and then I went straight onto the army.
Definitely, that's some sound advice right there. I probably need to get something like that. I'll have to find some Necron bits somewhere I can test on. I'd be like, just an arm will do. But I find it funny that because I collect the one army, like you can show me any of the current orc bit ranges, range, and I'll probably be able to tell you what kit it's from. Which is half the fun I think of seeing people's conversions. Is
Yeah,
sitting there
yeah.
going, oh, where's that bit from? Oh, that's from that kit, and that's from that kit, and where did he get those legs from? I always find that kind of interesting. Sort of like spot the difference type of thing, but just spot the bits. Who else is chatting away in the comments section? Dim Reaper saying no pressure, no need to make time. Yeah. Kyle is saying I find myself the most motivated when I've done nothing for a day or two, so I find myself struggling to get stuff done if I have to go to work. Though I have 1 week till I go full-time hobby. Ooh. Oh yeah, that Kyle's given up his old job and he's going full-time hobby. Fair play, Kyle.
Mm.
He's doing well with his Patreon. He does a lot of 3D sculpting.
Ah, okay.
He does a lot of orc stuff. I'm sure he'll branch out. Speaking of orc stuff is saying shouldn't make that much difference except bloody flash gits. Their guns take more painting than the average boys, and then you've got to paint the flash job on the gits themselves. Yeah, that's true. Some of the orc miniatures are very sort of busy. I suppose that would tie into your painting of an army as well. Whereas the like of maybe Space Marines, like bog standard Space Marines, or like you were saying about your Tyranids, that it's a very sort of simple color scheme you've got going on. It can be about a blessing and a burden. If we're coming at it from the approach where probably me and you would be, where it's like, oh, I need this unit for my army. That helps a lot. Whereas if you're coming from like the painting aspect, where it's like, oh, I want to really challenge myself, it's like, well, you can if you want, but it all depends, really.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Hans Gruber said, spend hours painting a troop choice to the best of your ability. To only get them wiped out in one turn by an undercutted league unit is always fun. That's always the way as well. I always find the old adage where it's like your newly painted miniatures are I think the first game, they nearly always do bad.
Oh yeah, I had great fun playing Steve-O. when he came to my house with his newly painted models. Shot those first. Lovely done, isn't it?
It's like, oh, those newly painted miniatures that you're very proud of. Oh, they're going off the board first, mate. It's like it's always the way. It's always the way. It's like I think it's sort of like we over invest ourselves emotionally into them, so our expectations are higher. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We
It's
expect
just
it.
the fun of playing them, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's always a laugh at the end of the day. That's all that matters.
That's what I always, when I'm playing a game, I always take a few minutes to step back and have a look at the board and the armies on the table. I like to go around the other side and see how my army looks from like my opponent's point of view, because your army always looks different from the other side of the table.
And enjoy the spectacle, and or are you approaching it from sort of more of a strategic type of thing?
No, no, just like have it, just the spectacle really of it. Just no, just you put all that time and effort into doing your armies and the terrain, and that's the end. That's the ultimate result, isn't it? To see it on the table like that.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head there. There's nothing quite like two fully painted armies on a really decked out table. Like that's the eye candy right there. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It really is. That's the draw. Because if you think about it, to like when you first came across the hobby or something like that, there's sort of a wow factor to it where you're drawn in, and you know that wow factor isn't going to really happen with just primed miniatures or basic grey. But when you see two fully painted armies, it's like, wow, that looks cool.
yeah, exactly.
Really sort of shows the hobby off for what it is. Not that there's anything wrong with painting or playing with unpainted miniatures, but I think visually the end goal is fully painted, full terrain.
I think it's easier to play and lose when you're in that mindset as well. You know, when you're there, just in the moment, especially if it's with a friend. You know, and have a laugh and just the table looks awesome.
Well,
Just
this
makes
is
it
it.
more enjoyable.
I think that sort of that mentality will help a lot more as well. Um, if you're sort of enjoying the experience itself rather than just the result.
Yeah,
That way, if you do lose a game and you lose badly, you're like, well, I still enjoyed the game, so I don't feel like it was a waste of time. You know what I mean? Whereas I think if some people, or if even personally, if I overemphasize trying to win, which I tend not to really do, I tend to more like just my mentality of enjoy the game. Like I think some of the best games of 40k I've ever had, I got tabled, but I loved it. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's all about the journey, man. Who's saying what now? Navani is saying, besides Necrons is my main army, whereas Orcs is a for fun army. Oh, I get you. You're cheating on your Necrons with Orcs for the shenanigans. I think that's funny how like some people don't see the Orcs as like a serious faction kind of. They're just sort
Mm.
of like a joke, which is interesting because I think some of the players have that sort of view as well. Just there for the lols. But you can get really mean orc armies.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I first started playing, orcs were really horrible to face. I hated facing them, especially when there was that wound allocation thing around.
Oh, 5th edition, the wound allocation shenanigans.
Yeah, that I mean, you had Thraka. I think he had like a 2+ invulnerable save on the charge or something silly,
Hmm.
and then he had like his unit of knobs around him, and they were dispersing the wounds around. So you'd have like one wound on this guy, and then the next wound went on a different guy, and you know that was back in the day. Where it was all about Death Stars, wasn't it?
Yeah, 5th dead. It was. I never really liked those mechanics. I always enjoyed sort of playing the game for what it was. I
Mm.
think knob bikers were really big back then for the same reason. It was you could distribute wounds across the unit, But I never really liked that though. You know what I mean? I think I did it with smaller units when I went to a tournament. I'd bring like 3 mega knobs and I'd give one a shooter, one a flamer, and one whatever rocket launcher, and you could do a little bit of that. But I didn't really like going overboard with it, where it could get ridiculous. Because if it's like a unit of 10 knobs on bikes, they could absorb like 10 wounds before you take a model off, and that's a bit like disheartening. So
well, that's how me and my buddy used to play. We used to play, and then if a unit was just too powerful, it's like, yeah, we won't be playing that again. You know, it's like, what's the fun in that?
just sort of house rule it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. See, I think the problem is it was more an abuse of a game mechanic itself, is what led to that problem. And sort of, for me personally, it didn't really feel too much in the spirit of the game, where you're sort of using an exploit. But I suppose if you're going to tournaments, people are going to be looking for those type of things, which is what I was doing at the time. But
in 5th edition, I was learning my Eldar army. It wasn't a good time to learn Eldar. But they was not in a good place at that time. They used to shoot on 4s, and now they're 3s, aren't they? Used to shoot on 4s. They were fragile, and you had to really be a master of the army to get it to work.
To get the most out of them.
Yeah, and then I was learning. The learning curve was like massive on them. I was losing every week with the Eldar back in 5th edition, and my buddy was in playing the Orcs mainly then, more than Blood Angels.
So the pansies were getting a good crumping off the boys.
Yeah, I mean, I used to lose every week, and then that's when I went hunting on the internet, like, how the hell do you play Eldar?
It's like, I need to beat this guy. How do you beat him?
And that's when I found Fritz's channel, Fritz40k, and
oh, it's Sam Han, wasn't it? He used to.
yeah, went to Samhan, and that got me inspired to do my own videos. So that's my little story of how I actually got into YouTube.
There we go, and 10 years later, here we are. I don't know, what got me inspired to do videos? I'm not too sure. I think I was seeing... I don't know, I like the idea of sort of sharing stuff. But like I said, I've never been much of a big painter. But I think I liked the idea of like talking tactics and stuff like that. But I never really got into doing tactics videos. I sort of did like a little few hobby videos and playing tournaments, but I was never a great tournament player. I don't have that mean streak in me. You know what I mean? Like, I remember playing in a tournament and I was playing against another orc player who had gotten a list off the internet, and it was all about wounds allocation, and he didn't have a clue how to do it. And you know what I mean? And I was like, no, I'll show you how to play your army. Your army's better than mine. I'll show you how to play it properly. It's like, that's totally the wrong mindset you need to have for tournaments. I just sort of, I don't know. I thought it was funny. I used to enjoy going. They were good crack. Do you know what I used to enjoy more than anything? It was sort of like, you'd go to the tournaments, you'd meet guys, and you'd have a laugh with them afterwards. You'd all go out for drinks and, you know, sort of the social aspect of it more so than the, I want to win the tournament. But at least the games were taken seriously, you know.
I haven't been to many tournaments. I've only been to 3, but all of my experience has been really good with the events. Everyone I played been really nice. I had some really good games.
I mean, it's been a long time for me, but yeah, I didn't really have any issues myself. I was rather surprised. I think there's sort of a perception or a stereotype, you know, If you go to tournaments, you're gonna come up against those guys, the sort of rules lawyery type of argumentative to the point where the game's not fun anymore. But I don't. I think they're like. They must be a minority for. I'm not saying that they don't exist out there. I'm just saying that myself personally, I haven't really come across many of them in my journey. You know, I do know some exist, but I haven't had problems. Who's cracking on in the comments section? Bum bum bum. Dim Reaper was saying on a lower budget, a dip into a smaller skirmish is a good palate cleanser. Yeah, I think so. Doing like a kill team or something like that, or something a bit different. Would be interesting. But then, like you were saying about trying to get other people into starting fantasy or starting something else, I find that with wargaming, you'll have a problem. It's like you might find a really cool game, but if you can't convince any of your mates to play it, it's like, well, you know, good luck with that one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's having someone to play and the time to play it, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's it. Your time's precious. You can only spend so many hours.
I quite like that Gaslands. That looks really good.
It looks sweet. I do have 1 or 2 Gaslands vehicles myself, but I've yet to play another game.
Don't have the time. That's the thing.
I suppose that's part of it, is prioritizing games and dedicating your time to those games, you know?
Yeah.
Claydog was saying, grey wash is brilliant for white. I use it on my Stormtroopers for Legion. Star Wars Legion. Claydog was saying.
Yeah, it's really good. I was surprised, actually, how good it was. Yeah.
I've heard really good things with the contrast white for the same thing. I haven't tried it myself. Have you tried any of the contrast stuff?
I haven't tried any contrast because, well, I've been painting these and I already have my colours like set for them, so I've not had an opportunity, but I will try them one day.
Give them a bash. That's the mentality I've had so far, is like I've already got my colour scheme dialed in, but I'm watching tutorials that other painters are doing, and they seem to use like Darren Latham. He was using some of the Black Templar contrast. He'll use very interesting. He'll get like a Nuln oil, and if he wants it to be a bit darker, he'll put a little bit of the contrast into it, and then start with that when he's doing shading into the recesses and stuff like that. So it's interesting seeing how painters use products, not just for, you know, the primary use where it's like, here, just paint this over your unit, but if you mix it with other products like washes and maybe like some Lamia medium or whatever, you can get some interesting effects being done. You know, there are a lot of those. The green ones here. What is the crack? The green one. Pocactus is saying Steve will make his own hit list every time he uploads a unit done video. Navani was saying, isn't that the horror movie way? The best looking always dies first. I think this is in regard to your newly painted miniatures.
Yeah.
the screamer film effect. Always the first to die. Daka Flack of Flame. I like the dual nature of orcs, where they are having fun and being goofy from their perspective, but they are horrible, torturing, cannibalistic murderers from the outside perspective. Yeah, they are a very varied faction. Very interesting faction. Question, a piece of trivia. Are you aware of like the forced appearance of Necrons? Like, to the best of your knowledge, Nick?
They may, what, fluff-wise?
Yeah. Do you know when they were sort of hinted around first? It's orc related. I'll give you a clue.
Okay. No, you know I'm no good at fluff.
It's Gorka Morka, actually. It's the first time that Necrons were sort of introduced to 40k.
Okay.
which is kind of fun because I find the fluff for orcs and Necrons sometimes they tie into each other a bit. Like the third edition Necron Codex had a bit of orc fluff in there as well. I think that was chatting about the what was it? The old ones. I think there was a talking about the war in the stars.
War in Heaven.
The War in Heaven. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting the way like Necrons and orcs have a tied past in that regard. Was Navani saying, no, I don't mean that I don't collect them to win. I do take them totally seriously after being killed. So many games in 4th edition. I didn't play much of 4th edition myself. Dim Reaper was saying, yeah, orcs are only really funny in their own context. It's very understated. Oh yeah, orcs find things hilarious. Like your mate accidentally shoots his foot off with his shooter. Orcs will find that funny. Whereas a different faction might be, you'd be like, oh my god, are you okay? Like if it was Imperial Guard or Eldar, they might be upset about their friend shooting his foot off, whereas orcs will just point and laugh.
As an orc player, do you like watching like films that have orcs in, like Lord of the Rings and stuff?
I like Lord of the Rings, but not because there's orcs in it.
Right.
Because the orcs in Lord of the Rings are very different to 40k orcs. Even though 40k orcs are pretty much like fantasy orcs put into a sci-fi setting, they're sort of their own thing. It's like a different
films that have like, well, really good orcs in.
Really good like 40k orcs. I don't. Not that anything comes to the top of my head. Like obviously you'll have like video cutscenes from some of the video games that they have in the 40k setting, but I don't think there's any 40k orc films. Like we don't have a fanatical fan base like, you know, someone will sit down and make a Black Templars movie, or you know what I mean, with the Marines.
What about those green skinned creatures in Return of the Jedi?
What are they called? Oh, I forget the name. Return of the Jedi. In this, it's not the Sarlacc pit. What's it called? The Rancor, is it? The handlers for the Rancor?
They're like they open the doors and stuff.
Oh, the pig dudes. Oh, they have a specific name, but I can't remember what they're called.
I mean, they're quite orky, aren't they?
Oh, I see what you're playing at there. Oh, ba-dum bum. They're green. That's about it. That's about it. Oh, I'm gonna have to start recycling things made out of tin now just to get back at you. Green one's here saying hello. Steve-O saying under brown bits on 5 tank busters so far, 10 more to go. Slow progress as always.
Slowly but surely, and now Steve-O's got his deadline. We pretty much set my little tournament that I do. So it's going to be the end of July. So that's how long Steve-O's got to get his army together.
So the clock is ticking. We need to get him. Motivated with more of our hobby hangouts to get them. What did you say? End of July.
End of July.
Yeah, we've got a few. We've got about 8 hobby hangouts between now and then, Steve-O. You have no excuse. Every second week, no excuse. Are you gonna have more people? Like, well, how many was at the last one? What was it, about 8 or 10 or something? Or
8, yeah, including myself. I think we're going to just stick to that. We have discussed about getting a hall and stuff. I think it's just going to be too much hard work. So we're just going to keep to what we did last year. It was good fun.
Yeah, it can be a pain trying to organize something, especially if it's all left up to one person.
Yeah,
trying to organize that thing. But if it was, you know what I mean, if it was different, if you had a couple of people who were getting together and organizing it, you know, if you had one of your mates who was sorting out the tables and the terrain, and someone did the venue, and you know.
Yeah, and if we were all a bit more local, it'd be a bit easier.
Yeah. Why do some of the guys come from far and wide? Who travels the furthest to come to your little event?
Uh,
Well, I don't mean little event as in like belittling, but you get what I mean.
no, yeah. I think Darren from Twisted Dice, I think, may live the furthest away. Because I seem to remember he lived about an hour or so away from Ace Face. Ace lives in Kent way, I think. I think, well, Richard obviously is the closest because he lives quite close to me. Steve-O's not too far away. So I think Darren from Twisted Dice is probably the furthest away.
So he's got a good few hours to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose at least you don't have someone coming in from a different country. That sort of spices things up a bit. That's the good thing I think about like the UK is you're all sort of connected by roadways. It just depends how much driving someone's willing to do to get to something, you know?
Yeah.
Like even if you had someone from Scotland coming in or something like that, you know.
I do want to one day have like a bigger thing, you know, but maybe just not this year.
I think you're better off doing what you're doing for now, where you're sort of keeping it small for now and letting it sort of be organic, you know?
Yeah.
Don't sort of shoehorn it too much into something else. And enjoy it because too many people have started something and then it gets forced bigger and bigger and then the fun comes out of it for you then and then it's not like enjoyable.
Yeah, it just becomes a chore.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, I run this event and there's like 40 people who come to it and you don't really have any enjoyment in and of it anymore. So yeah, I think you need to sort of be conscious of that. I think you're making myself personally, I think you're making the right call. Just keep it to a few buddies, a few YouTube buddies. It's a good call. Are you gonna have anything different yourself, army wise, or?
I'll definitely be playing Necrons. Don't we haven't really decided on the format or anything yet.
You don't have any like secret painting projects you've got on the wings hidden away?
No,
No.
no.
Keeping a tight lid on that one. Kyle was saying Mad Max is orcs. Yeah, pretty much. All right. Yeah, that's probably film reference wise the best thing you're gonna get for orcs is Mad Max. If you look at now that he says it, if you look at the new film, it's like the War Boys. They're pretty much like human orcs. They're diggers. We'd call them diggers. They're like humans who act like orcs. Diggers.
It was quite good that new Mad Max, I thought.
It's
Fury
it's
Road, isn't it?
yeah, it's really good. I thought it was really good visually. It's awesome. I think the storyline gets a bit lost. It's like where they go out and then they're like, oh, we'll just go back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dave was saying the pig guards. That was your Return of the Jedi. Gamorrean guard is what they're called. Ah, Jabba's guards. They're very orky. From Return of the Jedi. Yeah, I remember one of them getting eaten by the Rancor. I always found that a bit interesting when I was a kid.
That's right. He got eaten by it, didn't they?
Yeah, it's sort of like nommed on. Daka Flak Flame is saying the Raiders in Borderlands are pretty much human orcs. Who else can I think of? The Muties in Fallout. I've only really played Fallout 3, but there's the Muties. They're big, huge, muscular. They're not green. They're sort of this nurgly, sort of yellowy, greeny, pus-coloured sort of... Yeah, it's sort of a yellowishy green, but they're pretty much like orcs. They cover themselves in like scrap armour and use big clubs and choppers and stuff. So they're pretty orky.
Are there any of the orc factions that have different coloured skin to green?
Faction wise in the lore, I don't think they differentiate by their skin color. It's more the colors that they wear as a clan. But people have painted up some really nice orc
Yeah,
factions.
I've seen like a blue skinned orc army. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know if it's in the fluff or not.
I'm sure that maybe there is something about it, but it's not differentiated for the clans. For the clans, it's generally like their culture as such,
Right.
and the colors that they wear. But like some folks have done really nice blues, reds. I've seen orcs painted in red, yellows. Like technically, orcs could be any color you want them to be. They're just sort of traditionally seen as being as being green skins in the lore. What with them being called the greenskins. I need to stop hitting that microphone with me paintbrush. 6 plus Stevo's deadline set. He's locked it in. Dim Reaper said the old ones created the Krork to help fight against Necrons. All the races that have Packers were made by the old ones, as far as I know. Referring to the War in Hearden lore. I always find that a bit interesting, the way you might find it in a different codex. Some of the lore. Like for instance, I think it's Gruk Face Ripper. I think he gets killed off in one of the Space Marine codexes or something like that, which I found a bit odd. I always find that a bit strange when they kill off characters in a different one. But you're not much. You're not. Are you into lore yourself much, Idic? I didn't really see as much of a lore nut.
I'm not. It's my least favourite part of the hobby. Having said that, I have been really enjoying Voldemort's Guide to Warhammer.
He does.
His videos. I mean, he makes lore interesting. And when I see him in my subscription feed, especially when he's got a 1 hour video, it's like perfect. It's like my hours of painting today, I'm going to do to that.
Stick it on and get the paint going. Yeah, Voldemort's videos, I do like them myself. They're
I've been learning a bit through his videos, which is good.
There's a nice style to them. Very well done. I like them. From what I gather, there's quite a few people who are fans of them. So go show them a subscription if you haven't already.
So how much have you painted so far then?
Oh, me, I'm really like super slow. I've only done the metal on 7 orcs. And I've... is it 7? Yeah, 7, 8, 9, 10. A couple more to do. I think chatting away is slowing it down, but it's... I'm just doing metal.
Yeah.
When it comes to the hobby hangouts, I don't like dedicate them as I'm gonna get so much painting done. It's more sort of the social hobby aspect of it. But what I find is I'll start here and then it'll continue on for a couple of days. So I might pump another 20 or 30 hours into these guys, and that'll be this 10 done. Because I kickstarted them here, you know. How's your progress going?
I've done 6, 7, 8, although one of them had no arms. So I've done 7 sets of arms.
Just arms. I suppose that's interesting. Have you tried doing like all the highlights on one miniature and then moving on to the next one, or are you finding the way you've got it going is a lot?
Yeah. On the first set of edge highlights that I did, I started doing 1 miniature at a time. The first 6, I did 1 whole miniature at a time. But I found that was quite difficult because I was constantly edge highlighting a different thing, bearing in mind that each one of these has a totally different piece on the armor and stuff. So I decided to do a bit more of a batch painting style instead. So the second set of 6, I painted all the legs first. And then I painted all the torsos and I painted all the arms, and that was much better because I was able to, like, repetitiveness of it made it go quicker. So rather than like, oh, I'm painting an arm this time, the next one it's I'm painting a leg or whatever. So it just made it easier. So on the second edge highlight, I've not even split them into sixes. I've taken all 36 and I started off, I painted the legs on all 36, and then I painted the chest on all 36, and I did the shoulder pads, and now I'm on the arms. And then when these are done, I'm going to do the heads and then the backpacks, and then they'll be done.
And you find it goes quicker when you're doing a specific piece.
Yeah, because I'm used to it, so I know exactly where the paint's going. Especially some of these Spellcrow bits and pieces, because they're very detailed. I enjoy painting the Spellcrow bits rather than the actual Games Workshop bits. They're much nicer to paint.
You find the detail crisper, is it?
It's just more fun, you know. They've got a lot of fun bits on them. Yeah, just more fun, really. I think the GW bits are, it's just all angles, you know. This guy's got like leather trousers on with like buttons and poppers and all sorts of things on there. So it's just more fun to paint.
So if you're using third-party bits, do you play in a local games workshop that often, or much?
No, I've never played at a Games Workshop store.
Ever?
No, never. I've only ever played at home or a friend's house, or apart from the tournaments that I've been to.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But yeah, I do appreciate that I won't be able to take these into tournaments, which that doesn't bother me. It would have been nice to have taken them to like an Armies on Parade or something, but I'm not allowed to, so that's just one of those things.
But you're happy enough with it. I suppose in your situation, if you're saying you only really play at home or in mates, you're not really that hamstrung, I suppose. But only
No.
really when it comes to Army on Parade. What do you think about that sort of policy about like third-party bits?
I think it's understandable GW's like views or attitudes on it, but I also think that it's not good either. Do you know what I mean? Because, well, especially if they don't make the parts, then I think there should be no reason why you can't go out and buy other stuff and then take it into there. It's like these Noise Marines, you know, all they do is one Noise Marine upgrade kit, which you're not going to put on every single model. A, because it's a very expensive way to do it, and B, it's going to be pretty boring.
There's a lot of repetitiveness, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think they've got a leg to stand on it from that point of view. If they make the models themselves and then you're buying alternatives, I suppose you sort of can understand it. But I would imagine as long as the model's got like at least 50% Games Workshop stuff on there, then they shouldn't really moan. At the end of the day, you're still a customer of theirs, aren't you? You're still doing the hobby. It's no different than like shopping at one shop and having a bag, like go to Curry.
Getting chucked out of Asda because you've got a Tesco shopping bag with you, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it happens, doesn't it? Every shop, you know, they get customers that buy it elsewhere, they come in.
That's so, I've never thought of it that way. That's such a funny comparison. Yeah,
Yeah,
I get you.
I
Yeah.
work in a shop, so.
Yeah. You work in retail, so but I do get you. I think they definitely don't really have an excuse when a third party provider is filling a gap that they haven't filled for years, could be decades, like, you know what I mean? Something that's been neglected.
Yeah, yeah. And I think if they were a bit more open to it, I think it would actually help them in the long run as well. You know, it'd be pretty cool if they went into partnership with some of these third-party companies.
Yeah,
Promote them.
if they were
Because
like
it promotes the hobby, doesn't it? Promotes it for them.
well, this is it. That would be interesting. Yeah, I've never thought of that before. If they like went with third party guys, but that's what they used to do with Forge World back in the day, wasn't it? They used to go and do third party with a armor cast until the demand was high enough, and then they brought all that in house. And
Well, they used to give you templates to make your own models, didn't they, and stuff?
in White Dwarf, yep, used to give you templates. I think there was the Baneblade back in the day.
That's right. Yeah.
There was a White Dwarf where you could make a Baneblade. They just give you the templates scaled up from Epic. Yeah, very, very interesting. But it's different times now. I think it's more. I think there's less of the sort of DIY aspect of the hobby. Like even if you look at the terrain and stuff, it used to be at one point in time, maybe in the mid 2000s, was probably the later stages of it, where they used to sell books to make your own terrain. And then I think what happened, well, when was it? Was it City Fight 4th edition? I think it was 4th edition City Fight.
Yeah.
I think 4th edition City Fight came out, and that's when they started bringing out their own plastic kits, and they shifted. I think someone in Games Workshop realised, wait a minute, we could sell them terrain kits. So I think there used to be a lot more of encouraging you to be creative in regards to terrain and that sort of aspect, and that all shifted and changed.
It just got a bit more commercial, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, they're looking for the sales. I can understand that, but you know, at what loss? You know what I mean, to the hobby. Danny Hallis, what's the crack? Danny said, Nick, you still can take them to armies on parade. It depends on the store owner. My Games Workshop has the 70% rule where you can still use third-party bits, but the manager is an idiot. It's down to the store. Thanks for that one, Danny.
I did ask the store.
Your local.
You know, they buy a pot of paint, and they say, "What you been working on? What colours are you using? What are you doing with this? What are you doing with that?" So I told him I'm doing an Empress Children Army. And I said, "Oh, I had to get using the Spellcrow stuff because you don't do them basically." No, I didn't. I was nice about it. I just said, "Oh, I've used third party stuff on there." And then I did say to him, then I said, "No, would I be able to use them on armies of parade?" And he said, "No."
Pity. Such a pity.
Yeah. Said, "No, sorry."
I find that weird how it's like there's inconsistency in the Games Workshops. It's all down to your staffer. Do you know what I mean? I find that really odd for the company. Mini Warm Mutt is saying, Nick, you brush licker. You guys rock.
Okay.
Cactus is saying, we all know that would ever happen. GW has the Imperium outlook on third parties. Kill Forest Gascalator. It's true. Oh, it's true. Right, guys, I've thrown a link into the Discord. We're getting into the last 10 minutes-ish of the stream. So if you want to throw any of your work in progress that you've been doing during the stream, any pictures, throw them up there. And myself and Nick will have a gander, as will everybody else. And we'll see what people have been up to. It's my favourite part of the hobby hangouts, Nick. Getting to see what folks got up to.
You don't have to paint because you got to look at the screen.
Yeah, you get to look at the screen. It's like, ooh, seeing what different techniques or even what units people are doing, you know. But it's always good to see a bit of progress going on. Well, people have been busy with this work in progress. My. Very interesting. So post in the link, folks. Look for live stream work in progress and get your images in there, and we'll have a gander on what folk are up to. Some people are getting some converting on. Some people are doing some painting. Some people are doing some terrain. Bit of 3D miniature modeling. All that lovely stuff. It's a bit of a mixed bag. I do enjoy that. I like how it's not just orc stuff being painted, that people are working on a few bits and pieces. some different bits.
Bums are really hard to paint.
Bums are hard to paint.
Yeah.
Well, I find them super easy with orcs because if you look at their bums, they don't really have bums. They have
No,
this.
not bums.
They just.
Bums.
Oh, thumbs. I thought you said bums. It's like. I hate painting a butt crack me. I'm like, well, orc bums are pretty easy to do. You're like, no, no, no. Thumbs. Yeah, it depends. I forget when I'm painting something that isn't orcs just how big and cartoony orc proportions are. Like, I look at some of the Mechanicus stuff or even Eldar, and they look super stick thin. I'm like, how in the hell do people paint that stuff? Modeling for advantages here. What's the crack, bud? We're about to show up the Discord work in progress. Wrapping it up in the last few minutes. We're gonna have a look. So I think that's enough notice. We're gonna jump over to Discord now, and have a gander at what folk have been up to. And we'll,
Hang on, give me a minute. I'm just finishing this one guy up.
All right, we'll wait until Nick's finished him up. Don't worry, you take your time there, Nick. I wouldn't want to.
Give me another hour.
I'll be ruining the paint job now.
I'm nearly there.
I'll throw a bit of metal on him one more guy. Give some people a few more minutes to get their stuff together. Try and paint up some bullets, I think. But it is very interesting. Let's have a look at the chat.
These old Games Workshop Chaos Space Marine models, though, the detail is a bit dubious at times, especially compared to the new stuff.
Oh, where it's very soft.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how old is what? Third edition? Fourth?
Got to be around that.
Some of their kits, I always find that kind of perplexing, where it's a case of some stuff like the likes of like the Sinenesh kit you've got there gets neglected, but they'll bring like brand new, totally never made before stuff out. You know?
Yeah.
I always find that a bit
Right, I'm
perplexing.
done.
Right, so let's jump over to the old Discords and we'll have a gander. Is this the right one? Hey! We got it working. Now, so, let's see. Keep posting in the work in progress, guys. There's a few to go through. So, Gear Guts was messing around with his 3D design. He's been doing 3D sculpting of some sort of squigoth beast. It looks
cool.
looks proper menacing, so it does. I like the eyes, the vents on the eyes. That looks swank. Menacing, so it does. Oh Jesus! Yeah, that looks sweet, man. I look forward to it. If you're on the Patreon, you'll get the designs that Gear Guts has, and you'll be able to 3D print them yourself. If not, I think there's a store you can buy them from. He's been painting, so he's been working on his Mega Gargant that he's been 3D designing and printing. So this is all 3D printed, and he's been busy painting. So you can sort of see the scale here of what he's got going on. I wonder how many pots of Everland Sunset he's going to have to go through.
They spray paint, don't they?
Oh yeah, probably Everland Sunset spray would probably save you on this one. But he's going through the pots. So scale wise, if that's a GW paint pot, this is the legs. I've seen the design for this. It's about another third bigger, I think, with the arms and the legs and the. It is looking proper swank. I do like his rust effects. What do you think of the paint job, Nick?
It looks fantastic. Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah, Kyle has I think the technique he uses is sort of like a stippling technique for his rust and his paint. And visually it's very nice. Comes up really cool. Let's move on. What's Claydog been up to? There's some Eldars.
Yeah.
I think that's the Wave Serpent, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, Wave Serpent.
Is that a specific I don't know this paint job. Do you?
I have to be honest that my screen that I can see is pretty small,
Ah,
but I know that he does play Ulthwaite, so I'd imagine it's Ulthwaite.
it's like black and bone coloured.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
That's
the
them, all right.
amazing painter, Clayton.
Mm. I like the effect he's done on the engine. He's done like a
Mm.
fade in the middle and a lot of streaks. Looks pretty cool, man. And then he's been working on some terrain. Whee!
Yeah, I saw that in the Facebook group.
Mm.
Very cool.
Very nice object source lighting
Mm.
glow he's got going on. Very nice. All the little bits and pieces. Quite a few bits and pieces. Yeah, they look sweet, man. Nice progress. Nice progress. Nice bit of rust on them pipes and you'll be laughing. So Clay Dog's walk there. I like it. I've never actually tried OSL myself, Nick. Have you?
Yeah, I've done it a bit. Yeah, not a huge fan of it, to be honest.
No.
Um, no, I prefer mine to be just a bit cleaner, let's say. But I think it works really well on terrain.
Hmm.
I have painted that OSL on my Necron terrain, but not really on the model so much.
I get you, yeah. Yeah. Interesting. We have Hans Gruber. He's doing these bikes. Finished this week. I even drilled out the barrels. Oh, I see your slight there, sir. I see your slight. He's got some nice work on his his orc bikers. He's even got the pin
All
vise in the
quite
back.
good in game.
Um, they seem decent. I suppose if you're building a Speed Freaks army specifically, you can build some nice combos with them. I don't think they suffer probably from the same thing that a lot of stuff does with the orcs is there's not much staying power in them.
Mm.
So if you were to concentrate them down, like say with your Necron destroyers or whatever, you'd wipe them. But I reckon if orc player with orc bikes got the force turn on you, use a few stratagems, they'd pretty much get a force turn charge on you. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
it all depends really. It all depends. But yeah, very nice paint jobs. Nice browns in there on the rust. Pity you've painted them blue, but fair play for drilling out the barrels. I look forward to seeing them finished up. What have we got next? Poke Cactus is working on his conversion. He's building a lifter dropper battle wagon. It's a nice mashup of battle wagon kit and I think it's the galvanic servo haulers. Do you know
Cool.
the terrain? So it's the crane off of that and a few bits and pieces all mashed in there. And I think there's a mech gun and the turret off of a jet. See what I mean? It's like you look at a conversion, you're like, where'd that bit come from? And this bit and that bit. Yeah, and he's shortened it as well, I think. He's redone the bottom. Very nice conversion. Very nice. Good bit of work. He's got mechs and grots. These look like Forge World grots. Yeah, look like Forge World grots. Some nice gubbins is this. We have Pale Green Git. He's still very work in progress, but he's got his Mega Knobs being painted up. Even he's managed to drill a few barrels. Fair play. And
I think you're the only person in the world that doesn't drill their barrels, mate, to be
it's not
honest.
that I don't. I'll get around to it eventually. Eventually. But even look at it, the skin, the way he does it, Nick. It's a very sort of, the name goes with a pale green git. Very sort of pale.
Yeah.
Skin tone, so you can get a lot of variation. But these do look pretty sweet. I like the color scheme with the cream and the browns and the tone of the skin. It all sort of visually ties together really nicely. It looks pretty sweet. What do you think yourself, Nick?
Yeah, that's certainly they're very cool, aren't they? In that different color scheme, like you say.
Mm.
sandy,
Yeah,
almost like they're in camouflage.
very sort of like neutral colours.
Mm.
Very swank. I like the little lens flares as well. They look nice. Good progress, dude. Good progress. They're looking good. Oh, we got orc stuff. Found some more dreads and cans. Orc stuff's been sculpting away. Keep bashing stuff. Orc stuff uses milliput. If you're not familiar with his work, he tends to scratch build and convert and sculpt bits and bobs with milliput. So it always ends up with very interesting. He has a very unique aesthetic, orc stuff, when
Mm.
it comes to his sculpting. You can sort of tell his stuff. It's very nice. I like it. It's yeah, nice trade mob he's got going on. What else have we got? We got Grumpy Viking, Dim Reaper. A lot of people doing a lot of conversions tonight. He was working on some river trolls, doing some green stuff work, doing a lot of 4, chipping away at them. How are you at sculpting 4, Nick? Any good?
Yeah, not too bad. I have done some over the years. I sculpted an Eldar Farseer, made him into a Royal Guard, the Star Wars one,
Hmm.
with the red outfit on.
Yeah, I get you
So
the
I've
royal
done some
guards.
sculpting.
Sweet.
I
Nice.
don't do it unless I need to, though.
Yeah, I
And
get you.
I don't unnecessarily think, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this and do that. It's like, oh, his arms like bent out of place, and I might have to change something. And I'll do it if it's needed, but I won't go out of my way.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. It's sort of like if you're doing the hobby. And then the last one, you'll use green stuff as you go. We have Claydog with more terrain. Claydog has been painting a lot of terrain. Fair play, man. Looking very clean. Nice work. He's put a lot of detail into this terrain, a lot more than I would have. Fair play. What about yourself, Nick? Do you follow the train of thought that some people have where they specifically don't put too much detail into terrain so it doesn't draw away from the miniatures, or would you do something a bit like Claydog here where it's
I've I've only ever painted like two different types of terrain. That was my Cities of Death stuff, and obviously the Necron stuff. With my Cities of Death, I did like keep the details down
mm,
just because it was easier to paint. But yeah, I think the nicer the terrain looks, the better it is. I don't think it would have taken anything away from the armies. I think it would have added to them really.
yeah, to add to the visual spectacle. Oh no, I get you. It's just I'm aware that some people consciously don't
Put
do
as
their
much
terrain.
effort into the terrain. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're afraid that it might visually take from the miniatures, I suppose, as being the focus point. But yeah,
Mm.
well done, Claydog. And that's our work in progress for tonight. Boom, boom, boom. Good crack. Cheers for everyone who's posted some pictures, and thanks for joining us. I have to say thanks for joining in the live stream, Nick. It was a pleasure. We
Yeah, it's
got a
really good.
got a bit of work done. How did you find it?
Very good. It's took me a while to get used to talking and painting.
Mm.
And to be fair, I can't actually remember painting anything. I think I might have to go back and have a look at what I've done to see if I've missed any bits.
Double check.
Because usually I'm concentrating on the painting, but I was actually concentrating on talking and just like naturally painting. So,
Yeah.
but I got a lot done, so that was good.
Happy days. Happy days. Well, I hope everyone's enjoyed themselves, and like always, we'll be having another hobby hangout 2 weeks from now, every second Sunday, and hopefully we'll get you on again soon, Nick. It's been great crack.
Yeah, anytime.
So that's goodbye from Scarnier, and
It's a beam me up from Nick.
take it easy.